In order to run a successful e-commerce store, it's important ultimately to own your own customer contact list. So that means collecting emails, collecting text message numbers, collecting messenger subscribers. You should never depend on another platform for all of your sales. So let's say you're selling on Amazon or eBay right now. Well, they can change the rules at any time, right? They can raise prices, they can ban you. So you really need to be focusing on your own brand and owning your customers' contact information so that if anything happens, you can always depend on yourself to generate sales.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Engati CX. I'm your host, Kimberly, and we're really excited to have all of you join us today. On the show, we talk to CX and technology experts from around the world. We explore, uncover, and share fresh insights on creating experiences that your customers will remember and look forward to. Engati is the world's leading multilingual, no-code digital CX platform available across 15 channels with 53,000 solutions created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as the top platform by Inc. magazine, Tech World, CIO magazine, and many others. Engati recently also won the CODI 2021 award for being the best AI-driven technology solution. We run the Engati blog, the video channel, the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 500,000 visitors annually. Now, let me introduce you to our guest today. We have Steve Chou with us on the show. He is an e-commerce expert, speaker, influencer, and founder of mywifequitherjob.com. He is a successful e-commerce consultant. Steve has helped many aspiring entrepreneurs successfully start their own online stores. He also shares his e-commerce expertise as a contributing author on several leading businesses applications, including BigCommerce, Klaviyo, and ManyChat. His podcast, My Wife Quit Her Job, is among the top 25 marketing on all Apple podcasts. Welcome to the show, Steve. We're so glad to have you join us today.
I'm happy to be here, Kimberly. Thank you for having me.
Likewise. Before we dive into our amazing interview with Steve, where we're going to talk about everything in e-commerce, don't forget to subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon so that you get access to exclusive content coming from thought leaders from around the globe. Well, Steve, once again, thank you for coming on board and doing the show with us. We are super excited to have this conversation where we would really like your insights on topics like e-commerce and everything in and around that. My first question to you is, what is a must for e-commerce sellers to boost sales? How do businesses get customers to emotionally be invested in your products?
There's two components, I would say. One, your product has to stand out somehow. It has to have a very strong value proposition. Mm-hmm. Like in this world where people are just shopping on Amazon, you see all these products that all kind of look the same. Mm-hmm. In order for someone to pick your product among the sea of other products that are very similar, you have to stand out somehow. It could either be the design, it could be a certain function that makes that product stand out. Whatever it is, you have to have a good value proposition. The second thing that you need to, in order to be successful, is to have a story. It really helps to have a story around your product. Let me just give you a quick example. Mm-hmm. When I had my first child, we were looking for baby slings. A baby sling is, a carrier for your baby. Okay. And I remember going to the store and there were like 10 options, mm-hmm. 10 options. And we couldn't figure out which one to get. However, this one particular sling had this story about how this lady, that the inventor was this lady who had 11 kids or something crazy like that. And she developed this sling after having those 11 kids and she perfected it basically over all of her kids. And we ended up buying that one just because of the story itself. Mm. So, and again, the story kind of lends itself to the value prop also because it provides mind share over the actual product that's being sold. So if you have those two components, that will greatly increase the conversion rate.
Correct. Yes. You clearly mentioned that certain things which are like sometimes really very small, like design or probably just the messaging, could really have an impact on the buyers. Can you explain to us what really is the customer cycle and how can we identify, evaluate, and rectify any challenges that come across in the way?
Yeah. So the different customer stages are, and I'm not sure how familiar your audience is with these terms, but top of funnel means like someone's encountering your brand for the very first time. The middle of the funnel is like they might have heard of you, but they're not quite convinced to buy. And then there's the bottom of the funnel, which they're ready to buy or they've already purchased and they're going to buy again, perhaps, right? So on the top of funnel, usually the way I approach it is, one, you have to know your customer. You have to know what they want, what their problems are, and what they're looking for. And so if I'm putting together some, like an ad, for example, for copy, the first thing that I would do is outline the problem that they're facing and make it front and center, and then do what I call agitate them. Like, oh my God, do you ever get a headache when such and such happens and whatnot? Really present the problem, because sometimes people don't realize they have a problem. You have to tell them they have a problem. And then after that, you present your product as a solution. And then you have testimonials from customers who have used your product. And then finally, you have a call to action. So for people who've never encountered your brand, this formula that I just outlined actually works really well. It educates them, it tells them they have a problem, it gives them a solution, and then it shows that other people are using that your product, and then you try to get them to go to your site to make a sale. The middle of the funnel is they've probably already heard of you, kind of, but they don't really know a whole lot about you, and that process is just bringing them back and just kind of further educating them about your product. I think the key that a lot of people, what most companies tend to do is they tend to focus on the top of funnel, getting new customers, right? Getting new customers. Where most e-commerce businesses fail to emphasize is getting repeat business. There's been tons of studies done on this. I think one of the most famous ones is Bain & Company. They stated that if you can retain just 5% of your customers, that can lead to a 75% increase in revenue. Repeat business really is the lifeblood of any e-commerce store. So I'll tell you what we do with our store. Here's some interesting stats from our e-commerce store. So we run an online store, Bumblebee Linens. We sell wedding handkerchiefs. And you might not think that we sell in the wedding industry. You might think that our repeat business is really, really low. And in fact, it is pretty low. Our repeat business rate, I think, is only like 12%. But that 12% actually makes up over half of our revenue. And here's why. It turns out that a bunch of our customers are event and wedding planners. And so now what we do in our store is, if we find that someone buys an abnormally large amount of our linen products, chances are they're a business customer. So we'll reach out to them directly and we'll say, hey, we want to provide you with a dedicated rep and a special coupon code. And whenever you place an order, we'll make sure that order makes it to that event on time. And that basically causes that event planner to come use us over and over and over again. And today, a lot of our business is just in the bag at the beginning of the year because we have these repeat customers. So, I mean, that I would say is like the life cycle of a customer. You want to get their attention, get that first purchase, and then just keep them coming back for more.
Correct. I think what you mentioned about keeping the customer's problems first is the first stage when you kind of, want to go into the market and stuff like that. Because really what happens is you have a product, you state the things that your product is going to do, irrespective of what the customers really want, and then kind of just try to fix that or forcibly fix that kind of a situation, whereas it really works the other way around. I think because people really create the demand, I think that could be one of the reasons or the obstacles that, kind of have like a resistance between the buyer and the seller. But really wanting to know is, what big mistakes have you kind of come across, you see entrepreneurs really making here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest mistakes are kind of what we just first talked about, not having a really strong value proposition. So in terms of mistakes, I mean, we can talk about like website design and ad design real quick, because that's kind of what we've been talking about. If someone lands on your website, for example, and they do not know what you sell or what problem your item solves within, I would say, like the first 3 to 5 seconds, that is probably the biggest problem that I see with people's brands. A lot of people design really pretty websites with pretty pictures, but like the message and the copy has to be clear. If someone lands on your site and they're confused, a confused customer never makes a purchase.
Right. You've definitely put that in a correct sense, right? Correct.
I mean, it's none of this stuff is really rocket science. It's all about communication, really. In fact, I mean, product photography is important, but like the messaging is so much more important. I'm just trying to think of some, because I love analyzing, like most people don't like getting ads in Facebook and YouTube, but I love seeing ads because ads, what the most interesting part about e-commerce to me is the psychological aspects, like how using certain words can make you feel a certain way and inspire you to take action in a certain way.
Correct.
And so I would say like the worst ads are the ones that just kind of show a picture of the product and assume, or they're generic. They don't really speak to a specific person. So, you know, we've been talking about like value props and whatnot and solving problems, but like the first step really is understanding as much as you can, like who your customers are. Another mistake I see is just assuming that you know who your customers are, but you really, you know, the best way to do it and the way we do it now is we just pick up the phone and we call some of our customers. A lot of people aren't willing to do that. But if you're not willing to do that, you can send out surveys and that sort of thing, but you really actually have to talk to somebody and not just assume based on data. There's only so much that like data from analytics will tell you.
Correct. You spoke about messaging being a very important aspect as to pitching your product indirectly. I was just curious to know, don't you think personalization really becomes like a challenge here? Or do you think it is kind of a golden step here?
Well, it's a challenge to scale. So one thing that we do is we employ chatbots to answer the most frequently asked questions, right? Some people, I mean, here our top question probably is, where's my work, right? There's no reason that a human should have to answer that question because it should be automated. They should be able to check that stuff. Or they'll ask like, when is it going to be delivered? You know, what's the shipping time and that sort of thing. Those questions should just be automated. I'm a firm believer in using automation as much as possible to answer like the most commonly asked questions, but then like you actually have to have a human there to sometimes answer the more specific questions, right? This is why I believe that messaging is very important. Doesn't matter how you do it. It could be live chat, it can be SMS, it can be Facebook Messenger. But what I found is that if someone is willing to message you and you respond, that's almost a guaranteed sale, right? People want to know that there's someone on the other side. And if they're going to take the effort to message you and they get an answer, they're probably going to buy from you at that point.
Right. Very, very well put. What are some targeting methods that really work in the e-commerce industry?
Well, up until like a couple months ago, it used to be Facebook. But iOS 14, I'm sure Facebook will recover from this eventually, but right now it's kind of in this state of chaos. In terms of targeting, so Google is always good because when someone types in something in search, there's always search intent. And then from that data, Google provides you with a bunch of tools that you can target pretty effectively. I think Google hasn't been as negatively as affected by iOS 14 because most of their stuff is done through the browser and not through a specific Google app per se. Let's see, what are some other ways to target? We like to target based on the data that Facebook and Google has given us in the past. Let me just give you a quick example. For the longest time, we thought all of our customers were wedding customers. And then we started looking at the insights of our audience that Google and Facebook were telling us. And we discovered that, strangely enough, a bunch of our customers were real estate agents or people in the real estate agents. And it turns out that they were buying our products to stage properties. Now, it's impossible to know this just from looking at your order list, but so what we did then is we kind of looked at the people who were buying a large number of napkins and towels, and we reached out to them. And indeed, a lot of real estate agents were using our products just to make properties look better. Another thing that was surprising is we were getting hotel customers and airlines as well. And these are things that we never would have thought of because our original intent for our store was for the wedding industry. So you should leverage the data from your existing customers. That should be your first step, really, because you have all that data already.
Yes, correct. So really looking into, again, stats as to what really is channeling or pulling in could be kind of one step ahead to kind of, making your strategies and stuff like that. What could be some of your takeaways for entrepreneurs from your success?
For people who are just starting out, or people
who are just starting out.
Yeah, I guess the number one piece of advice, and I've been teaching e-commerce for a long time, a lot of people just lack confidence when they get started. And I just want to reassure them that really no one knows what they're doing when they first start out. You kind of just put out your store, and as problems arise, what's most important is just that you're a problem solver, because something is going to pop up that no one's ever talked about. Like you're going to have a lot of problems that are just unique to your business. And as long as you just take them as they come and be a little bit creative and not rigid in your thinking, you'll do just fine. And it doesn't cost that much to start an e-commerce store to begin with compared to starting a brick and mortar store. So the risk really isn't there either. So just give it a shot, really.
Yes. Do you have like a golden rule for someone who is like just having thoughts of starting a store, but really doesn't know where to start, what to do, stuff like that? Something that really could have helped them, or kind of just tell them, okay, now this is something that I have in mind, and now I need to really start. Something that you've learned, something that you've learned across in your journey, something that you could share with us.
Yeah. So if you have an idea that you've wanted to pursue, there's just so much information out there now. You can actually figure out how much a product is selling. Let's just take Amazon, for example. There's tools like Jungle Scout, for example, where you can go on Amazon and you can figure out how many units that item is selling per month, right? So let's say you have that idea and you're not sure whether you want to start. Just type in a product into Amazon that's similar to what you want to sell and just see how it's selling. You have all that information, and then from there, you can see how many other people are selling a similar product, what their value props are. And if you can come up with something that really stands out and is a much better solution than what's out there, that'll tell you to go for it. So use the data, really.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Are there any other sound bites you'd like to leave with our audience?
Let me think about this one. So, okay. Yeah, here's one last tidbit. In order to run a successful e-commerce store, it's important ultimately to own your own customer contact list. So that means collecting emails, collecting text message numbers, collecting messenger subscribers. You should never depend on another platform for all of your sales. So let's say you're selling on Amazon or eBay right now. Well, they can change the rules at any time, right? They can raise prices, they can ban you. So you really need to be focusing on your own brand and owning your customers' contact information so that if anything happens, you can always depend on yourself to generate sales.
Yes, of course. This is like a really very important thing that businesses kind of want to depend on other stores, and then eventually they kind of lose the connect. So yes, building like your own list really, really helps. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for giving us your time, your insights. You're very valuable. Thank you so much once again for coming on board and sharing these with us. It is really going to help all of our viewers kind of really come on, get started with their business that they've been planning on for days and months now. We'll be back again with a new episode and a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned and we'll see you around for the next one.